Welcome to the Aceman, everybody. It's time to go behind the funny. This is Scott Higgins.
And this is Ace Aceto.
And thank you for joining us. Thank you for downloading us. Thank you for subscribing. We appreciate it so very much. And if you have a moment, please give us that 5-star written review wherever you download your podcast. It's a great way to help the podcast. If you want to help us out another way, tell a friend. We all learn about podcasts from our friends' recommendations, and that's a way you can help us out by recommending us to a friend.
And the last way, if you really enjoy the show, is to go to our Patreon page and become a patron. And that is at www.patreon.com/behindthefunny. And what that will get you, it's one simple giving level, $5 a month. That will get you a t-shirt or a mug, some sort of merchandise, as well as unlocking bonus content that only our patrons can access.
Thank you so much for supporting us. If you want to reach out, you got a question for us, you got a comment, anything, please send us an email at behindthefunnypod@gmail.com.
And now, enjoy the show.
Be careful. He's
and Scott Higgins, both of them coked up out of their minds.
Listen to you. He's down in the basement. Yeah. Oh, I love that.
I think we should call this the Acement.
The Acement, yes.
Yeah, what do you think there, huh?
I like that. The Acement Studios.
Excuse me, I'm drinking beer. Hold on a second.
We usually drink bourbon on our end
Yeah,
when we
right.
do the podcast, so
That's all right.
feel free to enjoy yourself.
Yeah, exactly. You shoot an 8-ball if you want. We don't care, as long as it's good stories.
Welcome to the Aceman, everybody. It's time to go behind the funny. This is Scott Higgins.
And this is Ace Aceto.
And welcome. We are excited that you guys are joining us once again. 2023 is off to a great start.
Yes.
Hope you guys enjoyed last week's episode, Eddie Clark. That was such an honor having him on. I love when we have guests
So much
on
fun.
from our past that had such an influence on. You've had guests that were big influences on you. That was a
Yeah.
big one on me. And, I love when we have guests like that on. So I hope you guys enjoyed that as much as we did. Our little tease at the end about Scott-tober.
Great.
Scott-tober has become just such a big month for us every year, and it keeps getting bigger.
Well, I didn't tease it on last week's episode, but I did talk to Jason from Ghost Hunters about getting all of the Ghost Hunters folks on for Scott-tober.
Oh,
They're really busy in October, so I said, well, we'll pre-record the show. Whenever you guys have a couple of, have some time off, let's
Why
get
not?
all of them.
We did the overnight investigation well in advance.
Right, exactly. So
We got some great stuff coming up, and we're glad you guys are with us along for the ride. And again, shout out to our friend and our intern Haley for doing an amazing job with her videos on both.
yeah, she's getting us on the TikTok.
I got to tell you a story, buddy.
Okay.
Ace is working. I love when he does his Norm Macdonald impression. And last week he was doing an impression of Norm.
This idea for a new bit where I'm like, it's actually reworking an old bit.
Yes.
And so I talk about how, what was like the most famous, like what's the big job when people move out to LA and they want to get into acting?
They wait tables.
So I'm like, I used to do this bit and it evolved into a dirtier version of the bit. So now I want to do both where I do different voices for each. So I'm like, yeah, imagine like who would be the most ridiculous waiter you could think of? And so because I've been doing the Norm Macdonald, I'm like, yeah, imagine Norm Macdonald. So I do this thing where I'm like, Norm Macdonald is the waiter and someone asks, how is the mac and cheese prepared? And he's like, first what they do there is they take pasta. Yeah, and then they boil it, make it soft, and it's warm and hot, and then they put cheese in it. They get that the Munster, pepper jack or cheddar, whatever kind you want, and then they mix it all up, and then it becomes mac and cheese. So
anyway, you could tell we spent too much time together because my wife and I go out to eat last Sunday at my sister's restaurant.
Yeah.
And
Give her a plug. What's the sister? What's your
Quarterback Club, Putnam, Connecticut.
All right.
It's a great little sports bar, great food.
Do they have mac and cheese?
I found out that they do, lucky enough, because we're looking at the menu, and we always tend to get the same things when we go there.
Yeah.
You know,
get the buffalo wings there.
oh,
Yeah.
their wings are great.
Yeah,
I
that's
love
good.
their wings there. But anyway,
How do they prepare those?
we're looking at the menu, and my wife says to my sister, mac and cheese, how do you guys make that? And I busted out laughing. And both my sister and my wife look at me like, what is wrong with you? And I am just laughing because when she said that, instantly I heard Norm Macdonald in my head
Doing the thing.
Yeah, first they boil the pasta. That's all I heard in my head. That's
awesome.
And of course, my wife, like any normal person, is thinking, do they use like a heavy cream or what kind of cheese is in it?
Yeah.
Right? You know, the normal questions. But I just hear Norm in my head. They boil the pasta. And I cannot take it seriously.
That's awesome.
After that.
See, but that tells me that that's a good joke because I'm gonna do it now.
Oh.
I want to. We got to do a show at your sister's restaurant.
I've been
and
working
do-
on that for a while because they got a nice stage in there and
That'd
everything.
be
and
fun.
we're trying to put something together.
That'd be awesome.
You know, so anyway, that's that's the silliness of us when we're not
When
here.
we're not together.
Yeah, we still influence each other, but
That's funny. Hey,
we got our bourbon date this week.
this week's bourbon date, second week in a row, because we're trying to kill this bottle. Because I bought 3 of them at an auction, and I spent a lot of money. Thank God it went to a good place.
Ace learned you don't drink whiskey and bid on whiskey.
It's not a good idea, folks.
But at least the
It's
money
a
went
great-
to a great cause.
It's a great idea for the Izzy Foundation
Yes.
because they made a lot of money off me buying 3 bottles of bourbon. That would have cost
And right
me
now,
half the
Carla
price.
is buying more whiskey to feed you for the next time you go
Oh,
to
absolutely.
an Izzy Foundation fundraiser.
And she's getting gussied up for it too.
Oh, that's right, Dame.
There he goes.
She's
No.
getting those stems ready and getting in the Hudson and rolling into town. That's right. Light up a Lucky Strike. Tell the boys to meet us there. Ba-da-da-da-da, pow, ba-da-da-da-da-da. Sorry.
So tonight we are drinking yet again
She's
Horse
the bee's knees, that gal.
Soldier Premium Bourbon. It's delicious.
It's really good.
And we are
It's very
enjoying
good.
it, isn't it? Yeah, so second week in a row, Clinkies, buddy.
Clinks, bud.
But listen, we're not here to talk about bourbon, and we're certainly not here to talk about mac and cheese. Who gives
No,
a fuck?
this next guy coming up is the mac and cheese.
He is the mac and cheese.
And I was lucky enough to work with him just recently at Johnny Peasy's great new club right up in North Andover.
LOL
at
Comedy Lounge.
LOL Comedy at Joe Fish Restaurant. We got to work with the great Steve Sweeney, which is fantastic.
awesome.
And our friend Danny Gill was there as well. So it was an
yeah.
awesome lineup. All 4 of us got to perform that night, and it was so much fun.
And
So-
I've never gotten to work with him, but I met
You
him.
haven't worked
No,
with Sal?
I met him years ago at the Kowloon Christmas party.
Okay.
And
Okay.
I went and ended up, obviously I was hanging with the people I knew, but then I got to meet him and hang out with him. And awesome guy.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've seen clips of him, obviously. Funny comic.
Him and I were chatting before the show, and I'm like, okay, we got to stop talking because this should be on the podcast
Yeah, oh,
right
yeah.
now.
Yeah,
It
you're
was
like,
one of
save
those,
it for the
It was
show.
one of those comic conversations that like, okay, we need to stop talking because this should be on.
Well, then let's bring him in.
Yes,
We're really,
please.
really excited to have this guy. He's one of Boston's favorite comics. Please put your hands together. Well, if you're sitting at home or in your car, don't put your hands together because you'll drive off the road. But please welcome to the podcast
As he stumbles too.
Sal Votano. Another Italian guy. How you doing, buddy?
I don't hear any claps, though. I don't hear any applauses. Jeez.
Yeah, we're too cheap
Hey.
to have the board here.
That's our next investment.
Yeah, we should
like
do
the
that.
guys, our buddies
at Mixtape
at
Podcast.
Mixtape Podcast.
Yeah, they got all the sound
they got the
effects
nice
and shit.
soundboard, and they got a nice slide whistle.
That's right. I know, and our slide whistle is on the other side of the room, so it's not
Yeah.
going to do us much good. But
No, but
Hey,
anyway, Sal, thanks for joining us tonight.
Thanks for having me.
Now, we were talking the other night. You took some time off from comedy, right?
Yeah, back in 2017, 2018, I took some time off, about a year and a half.
and they just came back for the pandemic.
I stopped down Giggles one night, and Mike's like, go up and do 4 minutes. So I jumped back on stage for 4 minutes and got back into it again. And then COVID came.
Yeah.
And like everyone was sitting on a couch.
Yeah.
Actually, I was watching Ace do a lot of cooking. That's what I was.
Oh, did you? It was you.
My life's gone to hell. I'm sitting. I'm watching him cook at home during COVID.
You know what? Listen, a lot of people's lives went to hell watching me cooking on,
Hey,
on the phone.
Mike Clark was watching them too
I
and
know,
commenting. So
I know.
you weren't the only one.
I haven't played Giggles in 20 years, but Mike watched my cooking show. He knows I can cook. Maybe he won't book me, but he'll put me in the kitchen.
Yeah,
That's
I'll be
fine.
making pizzas
That's
in the
fine.
kitchen.
Make some mac and cheese for him.
I'll take it. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, you know, that's the thing. That's what they do is the mac and cheese is great. You know that Prince Spaghetti House, they got the mac and cheese.
How do they make the spaghetti noodle?
Come on, let's talk to Sal.
Now, originally, when you first started, Sal, was when? What year did you start actual?
I started in 2007. So,
all right.
Okay.
I didn't start till I was 37 years old. A late comer in the game, but
Now, let me ask you this, because I started, I was 33 years old when I started. So I was older than most of the other people the first time I went on stage, too. Everyone else was in their early 20s, and here I was 10 years older. Do you feel that was an advantage, disadvantage, didn't make a difference being a little bit older when you started?
I think being older is an advantage because when you're younger, I think you're probably more on the dirtier side.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a pretty edgy
I agree.
guy, but when you're younger, you tend to go dirtier.
Yeah.
Well, because we've talked about it before. You don't have life experience. You don't have other things to talk about other than, you start when you're 21, your hormones are raging so much. All you're talking about is sex, you know?
It's a lot of shock value stuff.
Yeah. No, I agree. It's nice. Obviously when you have kids and so forth, you have more stuff to talk about.
Right.
So,
Right. Now, of course, starting at 37 years old, you're established in life somewhat. So what was the draw that made you say, I'm going to try stand-up?
Class clown. I mean,
Yeah.
But you'd been out of class for almost 20 years. So something made you get up that night.
Yeah.
Something made you get up that night and say, I'm going to go do this.
You know what? Being a contractor, we're always breaking each other's balls. So it's just come second nature,
Yeah.
And I just like making people laugh. It's an enjoyable thing to do.
Yeah.
So it's just one day we walking around the block back, I don't know, maybe in 2005, I said to my wife, I wanted to be a stand-up comic, and she started laughing at me.
Mm-hmm.
So that was my first laugh. That was kind of cool.
Yeah, right.
And then I took Dave, I don't know, you guys know Dave Radigan, right?
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
of course. Yeah.
So I took Dave Radigan's class twice, actually.
Yeah.
The first time I wouldn't do it. I just wasn't ready mentally.
You
So
failed the first time?
Yeah, so I took his class again. And,
Took it incomplete.
Yeah, Tony Mosquito was calling me a pussy, so I'm like, all right, I got to do this. I took his class for the second time, got up and did it, and I've been going at it ever since. So it's been pretty fun.
Wow. Is Tony still doing it?
I don't know.
Yeah, he kind of like dropped off. I think he shows up every once in a while. He's called Lord Mosquito on the social media.
Yes.
But he was one of the funniest, quirkiest guys. I loved Tony.
I
haven't seen him really working that much.
Yeah, I used to do a bunch of shows with him when I first started, and then I haven't seen him in forever. Yeah.
Yeah, same here. We did a ton of shows together, and I don't know. I think COVID's pushed a lot of people off grid. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know. It's
Yeah.
I mean, I used to do 150 shows a year, and I think I've done 3 in the last year. So,
Yeah.
I'm back at Lots of Laughs this Saturday again with Adi Januario and Mitch Stinson.
Mitch Stinson.
So, yeah, so I mean, I've done more shows this month than I have in the last year. So it's
That's
good.
good.
Wow.
But I don't know. I don't know if I have the energy to do 150 shows a year. It's tough when you have a family.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
A lot
Listen,
of travel, a lot of driving.
I cut back
That's
when I had my kids. I cut back a lot, and I would work maybe 1 or 2 times a month, or 1 to 3 times a month. But I would never work usually never work a full weekend. It was always one weekend it was a Friday, 2 weekends later it was a Saturday, because you want to be there for your kids.
Absolutely. No, it's that's what it would be nice if you were 21. You didn't have, without the kids, you could actually go out and do 6 shows a weekend. But
Well, and it kind of goes full circle, because I'm kind of, when my kids were younger, I kind of spaced it out. And then when they got older and they didn't care, they weren't hanging out with me anyway, so I would do more shows.
See, I'm in that point right now. My kids are all teenagers.
But
they don't give a shit about me.
But and not to throw knives or anything, but you're not married anymore. So I'm kind of getting to the point where my kids are all moving out. And now if I go out and do a ton of shows, I'm leaving my wife home alone all the time. So I got to keep that in mind, too, because she doesn't want to go with me all the time every weekend.
Poor thing ends up going to your sister's restaurant and getting the mac and cheese.
So I, I got to keep that in mind too, that I can't fill every single weekend all the time and leave her home alone. So I got to kind of judge,
You're a smart guy. You're a smart guy because she'll be banging someone before you know it.
Yeah. Well, at least somebody is.
But I said the same thing. I mean, my kids are all, go in college, and I can't be leaving my wife home alone.
Right.
But she'll be banging the landscaper. I don't know.
Yeah,
so
right.
You got to think of this stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a balancing act. It definitely is a balancing act.
And when you're first dating and you're doing comedy, they don't mind coming to your shows because it's like a night out. I'll go to your shows. Last fucking thing they want to do after you're married for a while is come to your show, unless there's a comic on the show that they really like. It's not about you. It's like, oh my God, you're working with Steve Sweeney tonight? That's awesome.
Or when you go into a cool place.
Right. Yeah.
Like back in the day, Dick Doherty was booking the Mountain View Grand Resort and Spa in upstate New Hampshire, and I got booked there one Saturday night, and you got a room, and you got $100 credit at the spa, and you got dinner. Oh, she went up for that. She didn't even come downstairs for the show.
Yeah.
She's
busy getting the spa treatment.
Yeah, she got a spa treatment. Those are the cool ones that they don't mind.
Yeah.
But after they see you so many times, they don't want to go and see you anymore. And I get it. I understand.
I mean, they could probably do our acts for us,
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. In all fairness. So the very first time you ever did stand-up was where?
At the Roma restaurant in Haverhill.
And that was your graduation show from Dave's class?
Amy T was on the show. And I'll be honest, I was petrified.
Of course.
I never stood in front of people before.
Right.
And you have no idea what it's going to be like.
Right.
Bob Seibel was the headliner.
Wow.
Love Bob.
Yeah.
Great guy.
Show with Seibel. He was a great guy.
Oh, my God. It was so funny because I was just on Facebook today. Sean Carter. You remember Sean Carter? Started in Boston. Now he's got a place in West Virginia. He posted, he goes, what's the smallest crowd? Comics, what's the smallest crowd you've ever played in front of, and what's the largest? And I said the smallest crowd I ever played was at the Comedy Palace in North Andover. At the what the hell was the name of the restaurant at the time?
Chateau.
What was it?
Was it Chateau?
It's
Chateau.
The Chateau. No, it's the
now
Chateau
it is.
now. It used to be the God, I can't remember the name of it, but whatever it was, 5 people, me and Seibel, to the point where we just literally sat at the front table with the 5 people.
5 people was the smallest?
Ronnie.
That was double the size of my
Well, because Ronnie, the guy that used to book it, was like, look, we can cancel the show, but you're not getting paid.
Yeah.
There's 5 people in that room. They paid. You want to get paid? I'll pay you full price, your full pay, but you got to do the show. So we were like, well, fuck it. We're here already. It was a snowstorm. So we were like, screw it. You what?
I would have been like, 5 people, let's just have a drink at the bar with them and shoot the shit.
Well, and that's kind of what we did. We just weren't at the bar. We just stayed at the front table. But yeah, Seibel did the same thing. I sat at the table. He sat at the table. He goes, what are we doing? He'd always be like, what are we doing here?
He would do it for one person.
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Well, especially if there was money involved. He was he was a frugal guy.
That's being polite.
Who did we have on? Someone said one time he did a show in Vegas, and he asked him at the front desk, he's like, how far to the airport? Because they said, I think it was going to be like $25 to take a cab to the airport. He goes, how far is it? And they said like 7 miles or 10 miles or whatever. He fucking walked to the airport on the highway to save the $25.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was cooked. He came. I used to own a liquor store in Newbury, and he came in one day. I didn't even know it was him. He didn't take his helmet. He used to ride a motorcycle. So he comes in with his helmet, and he's like walking real fast at the register. I'm ready to like hit him with a bat. I didn't even know.
You're thinking you're going to get knocked over.
And then finally he rips the helmet off last minute. I'm like, Jesus Christ, Bob, you can't be coming in here with a helmet on.
That's like coming in with pantyhose over your head.
I almost hit him with a bottle of scotch.
What kind was it? No, I'm kidding.
The cheap stuff, not the stuff you guys
Not the
had.
good stuff.
If I feel left out, I would have came down if I knew you guys were drinking.
Oh shit! Sorry.
Then we're definitely having you back on.
Oh, we'll definitely have you back on then for an in-person one. We just, when guys, because where do you live?
Right now. I am in York Beach, York, Maine.
Oh my God! Yeah, so you're like 3 hours away.
Yeah, well, my son goes to Roger Williams in Rhode Island, so
so you're down here.
it's just convenient for me to pick him up every Friday. So
We'll have to do when we're both off on a Friday. We'll have to do a podcast. Have you in?
Yeah, we'll have you come down.
it's a 5-hour day going down there and picking him up and bringing him home. It's horrible.
We'll do some fine bourbon and then let you drive your way back up to me.
Yeah,
I'll let him drive me back.
there you go. There's your DD.
There you go. So I'm sure your first time on stage that night at the Roma restaurant was good because you got a supportive crowd there.
Yeah.
It's a graduation show.
Yeah.
How was like your second and third times on stage?
Obviously, you get you're still nervous. You knew. And,
Yeah.
But you don't have you've been up there, so you kind of know what to expect now.
Right.
You're good. You're never as good as you think you are when you first start. I mean, it takes time to get good, develop a pattern, and who you are on stage. Dave Radigan said you're going to develop on stage without even trying. It just comes to you.
I'm not as good as I think I am now. Never mind that.
We've had people on, and I don't know if you knew him, but this guy Darren LaCroix, who was a Boston, newer guy, started in Boston, was not, did not light the world on fire with comedy, but he became a world-class motivational speaker. And his mentor was Vinny Favorito, and he said Vinny always used to say, it's all about stage time, stage time, stage time.
Yeah.
The more time you're on stage, you can practice in front of a mirror as much as you want, but you're never going to get that crowd response that's going to help you learn how to pivot from one joke to another or change it up or change the order of your jokes. You have to do it on stage. And that's why, to your point earlier, I haven't said that in a while, to your point. It's my catchphrase. We drink. I'm sorry. Drink your water. No. But to what you were saying earlier, when, I just lost my train of thought because you clinked
over there, boys.
No, but when you...
Stage time.
Stage time. Well, because this is the only craft, if you will, or only skill. Like if you're a musician, you can rehearse in your garage. You can rehearse in a rehearsal space. You don't need the crowd in front of you to get better. If you're doing a play, same thing. You don't need the crowd there. You got to memorize your lines. You can emote. You can do all that stuff. We cannot get better without the crowd there.
Right.
It's impossible. I don't care how well we had Mike Donovan on. One of the greatest joke craftsmen writers ever that I've ever come across. And he talked about, driving to a gig in New York and doing his act over and over again till he knew every breath he was going to take, every period of every sentence, every nuance of his act. But you still don't know how well it's going to do. You don't know the timing. You don't have it all down till you're doing it in front of that crowd.
Right. But what I was going to say was the tough part is, to your point earlier, is when you're younger and you don't have a family, you can go to open mics 4 times a week and
keep working
get
on
on stage.
Yeah, right.
For me, like, I'm trying out this stupid Norm Macdonald joke on him, and he thinks it's funny. It could fucking bomb in front of an audience. Yeah. It's going to take me some time. Now I have the liberty of being able to sandwich it in between other jokes, but I still miss going to open mics, and we've talked about it. We'd love to go more open mics and work out new material, because that's the real only way to tell if it's going to work is in front of a real crowd.
Well, again, see, but going to the open mic thing, if you're going there and it's all comics, I think that's even harder. I would.
Yes, absolutely.
I would rather be on a professional show, and I don't have a problem throwing a few jokes out there new.
You sandwich it in between stuff that works, right?
Because you get the crowd going, you throw this stuff in there, they're there to laugh. But when you're doing comedy for 20 comedians who are talking in the back waiting for their 5 minutes, for me, that just destroys me. But Dave Radigan has his open mic every Tuesday at the Winter Circle in Salisbury. Justin McKinney goes there and
works out shit, right?
He's a great comic, and he goes and works stuff out. maybe probably he just wants to hear himself say it. But for me, you're not getting the laughs from comics.
But you know what? But I would argue that if you do get a laugh from those 20 comics who are normally talking in the back, that's going to crush in front of a real audience.
I was just going to say, Paul D'Angelo one time came to an open mic down here in Rhode Island, the Station nightclub. Unfortunately, obviously has a bad. We just passed a
20-year anniversary.
Yeah, the 20th anniversary. But they used to have an open mic night on Wednesday nights there. And Paul D'Angelo came down. He was working at the Comedy Connection in Providence for the week. And back then, the week started on Wednesday. And he came down after they did their show to the open mic. And he told us, a couple of the guys said that same thing. It's hard to know if my material really works because it's all comics here tonight. There's 14 comics and 2 actual audience members. And he goes, you know what? If you're doing your material and all the comics that are sitting here are looking and listening to you, then you have something. If they're laughing, you really have something.
Yeah.
He goes, if they're not paying attention, they're looking at their notebooks, they're talking to another comic, stuff like that. He goes,
well, that doesn't mean it won't
it
work.
Doesn't mean it's bad. It's just you don't have their attention. But if you capture all their attention with what you're doing, you probably have something really good.
Yeah.
And that kind of stuck with me, when he said that. And so every week when I went there, my goal was always to try to get all of the comics' attention. When I was up on stage, I would always work to try to, capture their attention in the room.
Right.
That'll work.
It wasn't easy. It wasn't easy, but it was my goal every week. That was what I set for myself.
I mean, obviously, it's like going to the gym. I mean, you need to do it.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
I probably got a little spoiled. I mean, I started working for Mike Clark, 2.5 years into stand up.
Yep.
And I'm, he's booking shows outside of Giggles as well. I mean, a small crowd was 300. I mean,
right.
I had 12 minutes of material and I'm performing in front of 1,000 people,
Yeah. How crazy is that?
I mean, a lot of clubs you go in there, there's 20, 30 people.
Yeah.
Right.
Small crowds. The room we were just doing the other day, Scott, 70 is the max. It's a small room.
Right.
So when you're used to work in front of hundreds of people and you're getting them going, I would throw some new stuff out there and it grew my act pretty fast.
Yep.
But again, I agree with you. If you can get 20 comics to watch while you're doing your new stuff at open mic, you have something.
Yeah.
But even the other night, this show that we were at, the crowd was very tight.
Yeah, they laughed.
They were really tight,
quick.
and you felt like you were prying laughs out of them.
Yeah.
Everything that you did.
Yeah.
And it was one of those nights we've talked about where you would do a joke that works every time you do it, and you really didn't get much of a laugh, and then you'd get a laugh out of the next thing, but it was quick, and then they'd be quiet, and it was just kind of like everything was just out of sync slightly.
A lot of work.
It was weird.
Yeah.
And we talked about it after I got off stage. Sal says to me, he goes, how did you find them? And I'm like, they were really tight. It felt like. He goes, yeah, that's how I felt too, because I watched Danny, I watched him, and I was like, all right, this is going to be a little bit. It was fun. It wasn't that it was bad.
No.
It was just they didn't really want to let go.
It's the one where you're in the green room and you're like, wow, they were like, haha, next joke.
Yeah.
Haha, next joke. That's it. You're not getting rolling laughter out of them.
Yeah. Until Sweeney got up there, and of course,
destroys, right.
It just blows the room up,
Right. Yeah. And then you're like, yeah, I suck.
Well, then I did my bit about being a building inspector for Ipswich, and
my God.
Then she wants to start asking me code questions.
Literally, this woman gets up as Sweetie goes on stage and comes in the back and tries to have a 20-minute conversation with him
about building codes?
About building codes in her town.
God.
She asked me about building heights. I'm like, I haven't worked for the town in 5 years, but when I'm on stage, she's asking me questions too, and I'm like, all right,
my God.
this stuff is a comedy show. We need to get back to comedy.
Yeah.
And we ordered food, and they bring his food over, and I go over and I go,
he's trying to eat, and this lady's
and I'm like,
asking him questions.
hey, if you don't eat, I'm going to eat your food.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to to get her to go away.
Right.
And she's not,
She's still moving on.
plowing through with her questions,
Oh, my
man.
God.
Yeah, she wants to go on Facebook and contact me and ask me code questions later. She hasn't. I haven't gotten it yet. I don't know what was worse, her or that I was eating buffalo wings outside the ladies' room. Like 3
Yeah,
people. In the
yeah, literally the table that is in between the men's room door and the ladies' room door is where our food was.
There's no green room. That's the green room right outside.
Right.
The
Yeah, yeah,
Oh my God.
yeah. It was interesting. It was
Yeah, it's
interesting.
funny how people want to start talking to you and get serious when you're on stage. But
Right. Yeah. Meanwhile, you're like, hey, lady, do you know anyone that wants to book me for a show? How about you book me for a show and then I'll answer your building code question.
It's one of those situations. The crowd was really tight. We had to eat our buffalo wings
outside
between
the bathroom.
outside the bathroom, and then someone goes, "Who books that?"
Yeah, of course. I'm sitting here going, how come Johnny doesn't call me?
yeah,
So you started 2006, 2007, and how quickly was it before you got in at Giggles? Did you say?
maybe about two. Mike, it's funny because Mike Jeff Keown called me. He's like, "Hey, Mike Locke's doing a comedy contest." He's like, "You should enter in it." And I'm like, I don't know if I'm ready. So I ended up entering it, and I think it was like a little over 2 years. And then
Okay.
And then it's funny when you mentioned Lenny earlier. I go out, I get off stage after my set. I go out to the bar. Lenny comes out looking for me, puts his arm around me, starts talking to me.
You're a funny little bastard.
And then Johnny Peasy comes out of the other room. I didn't even realize they did shows on the other side of the restaurant.
Oh, yeah.
So then I just started talking with Johnny and Lenny. Johnny booked me the next weekend, and then within a couple of weeks, I was working at Giggles and doing 3, 4, 5 shows a weekend there.
Yeah.
Wow.
It happened fast, and like I said, Mike books a lot of shows outside of the room. So it's a company called All Pro. I don't know if they do it anymore. So you know the company. I mean, it did about 140 shows a year.
Yeah.
There were great crowds. There were hundreds of people, but I think COVID kind of killed that. I don't know. Then I was working at Kowloon's for a while. Dave Radigan booked me a lot, so I was busy. I was staying busy, so I was getting plenty of stage time. I said, I ended up taking a year and a half off, and that kind of killed me.
Yeah.
Like I said, I got back into it. I think I did maybe 10 shows, and COVID hit. So
Right.
You're the second comic that we've talked to that had to step away for a while and came back just before COVID hit. Shay.
Yeah, Shay Spillane.
Shay Spillane. We had her on. Yeah. She stepped away for about a year. She goes, I came back, and she goes, I'm ready to go. She goes, and I come back in February of 2020. And a month later,
show.
Boom, everything locks down. And nothing you could do about it. I mean, no one knew that was going to happen.
We were talking the other night, like Zoom. And I mean, I couldn't do stand-up on Zoom. It just
I couldn't either.
I'd rather just sit home. And then, the drive-in, I think we were talking about that. I know Dave, I even think Mike Clark was doing something down the Cape. People would beep. You would stand, you were in a drive-in. Beep. They liked your joke.
Radigan had me at that one that's across from the Xfinity Center. Okay, it was great, but it was like, I can't tell if they're laughing. I'm like, so then all of a sudden you stop and you're like, all right, you guys having a good time? And all of a sudden all the fucking horns would beep and you're like, oh, okay. It was just... I think we all had to adjust to doing your material and understanding that people appreciated it, but they couldn't show it in the same way that they normally would in a think about it. You're used to doing comedy in an intimate club like Johnny Peasy's with 70 people in a small room, and all of a sudden you're in a fucking parking lot.
Yeah, I couldn't do it.
Yeah,
I couldn't do it.
It was crazy. I mean, I'm glad that it's gotten back. I think it's gotten back to normal for the most part, but we talked about it. We talked about how difficult it was to transition. But I think, I had been doing it for so long, I didn't know what else to do. I mean, this year, July will be 34 years since I first started. I started in 89. Wow. I don't know what else to do. And I've actually said it to Scott before, when I was going through my divorce, I actually said to her, I'll quit comedy. And I don't know if I really could have. I don't know if it would have lasted that I could have quit comedy because it's such a big part of my life. I love getting up in front of people and making them laugh. So during the day I work in medical sales. I did a lunch with a doctor's office today, and people came in halfway through the lunch and they were like, they started asking me questions and I started answering them. And the woman said, I'm sorry. I know I got here late. I said, listen, I'm a stand-up comic. I do 2 shows a night. I can handle this. And they all started laughing. I had them. You know what I mean? Even during the day job, I want to make people laugh.
Yep.
Yeah, it's not too many people admit that they'll put their marriage aside for comedy.
Well, I was going to say,
I didn't put it aside. Yeah.
our friend Cal Verducci did the opposite.
Yeah.
He got married, and 2 years after he got married, his wife said, all right, you gave this comedy thing a try. Time to put it aside, because he was doing it full time for a living.
Yeah.
And he goes, listen, you met me at a comedy club when you saw me perform.
Yeah.
You knew what I was before we got married. And she goes, yeah, but it's just not working. You need to put it aside. And he said no, and they ended up getting divorced.
Yeah.
Because he's like, no, this is who I am. This is, you knew what you were getting into when you got into this relationship.
I was a comic for 10 years before I met my ex-wife.
Right,
So,
right.
and I'm not,
It is what it
there
is.
were other issues.
It is what it is.
And listen, it's tough to, you're out every weekend, you're out drinking, it's.
You know what it is?
That's why most marriages fail in comedy,
Well, and especially nowadays with social media. So, yeah, I'm out working. I'm making money. Yes. Am I having fun? Am I having a few drinks? Absolutely. So I'm sure from her perspective, it's tough, especially once you start having kids, and our kids were young.
Yeah.
I'm out on a Friday night, and all of a sudden I'm posting pictures. Oh, what an awesome time at this, at this show. And I'm taking pictures with all these people, having a blast. And she's stuck at home with 3 kids. So I totally understand from her perspective. I'm not saying that I don't, but I was a comic 10 years before,
Now, how old were your kids when you started?
Again, I have 3 kids. I think my oldest was 9. My youngest was like 4.
Okay, so
Wow.
they were younger.
Same situation you were in, and my wife was pretty supportive of it. But again, coming in at 1 a.m. sometimes it's like really,
Right,
shows at
right.
1:00, coming in at 1. I'm like, it's Dave Radigan's fault.
Yeah, right, yeah. Throw Radigan under the golf bus, right?
I get it. So now when I do my shows, I try to get home a little earlier. Stay out as much.
Yeah, exactly.
I think the more you do it, the more you treat it like a business.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. It's not a party anymore. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, but your first year or two, it's a party.
No, absolutely. Are you kidding? Listen, when I first started, we used to have Frank Santos Sr., who was the R-rated hypnotist, and I was single.
Yeah.
Frank used to set me up every week. He used to make me one of the judges for the stripping contest at the end of his show. That was a great couple of years, let me tell you.
Yeah.
It was fun. But
I had a call with his son one night. Me and Mark Riley, we were doing a show. We come in, his son's just finishes up, 500 people in the room.
Yep.
And we're going on after him. I'm like, wait a minute, we're going on after him?
Why aren't we opening? Yeah, right.
So me and Mark are standing in the back of the room, and 300 people leave. And then they're all spread out. It was horrible. It was just, I'm like, great, 500 people. We're going to have a blast.
Yeah,
and
there's 50 people left.
How do you follow that?
No.
Yeah, it's I've actually done shows before him.
And those are tough enough, though. Those aren't easy either, because if people are there to see the hypnosis show and you get up there, it's.
Oh, I was just going to say, back in the day, I was working at the Comedy Connection in Providence, and we did the early show, stand-up, and the late show was Frank Sr., and he was running late because he would do the early show at the Kowloon.
Yeah.
And then drive down to Providence to do the late show in Providence. So he was stuck in traffic. So they said, hey, can you stay and open up the late show until he gets here?
Yeah.
And at that time, I'm thinking, hey, an extra $25. Because I was getting $25 a show, baby.
Yeah.
I'm already here. I'm getting an extra $25. So I get up there. She tells me, hey, do like 10 minutes and then look over towards, they have the big bank vault there.
Yeah.
And she goes, I'll give you the stretch sign if he's not here yet. So I'm going along. It's 10 minutes. I look and she gives me the stretch sign. So I do another 5. I look over. She gives me the stretch sign. I'm only a few years in.
Yeah. You don't have that much material.
I'm kind of at my limit at 15 minutes. And I'm just kind of plotting along. They're not digging me at all because they don't want to see stand-up. They're there to see, an R-rated hypnotist. and they're starting to boo and they're starting to yell shit, and it was getting ugly. And then he walks in at about the 18-minute mark, and I am literally beyond my limit at this point, and I'm sweating.
You're like,
It's
you guys like shadow puppets?
yeah. Hey, watch this. It was getting. I didn't know what I was gonna do yet next, but he walked in just in time and saved my ass.
Yeah, no. When you're new and someone's telling you to stretch, and I'm a one-liner, so it's hard to just. All of a sudden, people know like what just happened with this guy.
Yeah, right. Yeah, at least if you're a storyteller, you could drag a story out, or you could take a thing like a story that you have an idea for, like
Right.
I wonder what it would sound like with Norm Macdonald asking how the
Such an ass. Such an ass.
I'm gonna get that in all like no, but you can stretch a story, but for one-liner guys, yeah, that's tough because you're like, all right, I don't have any more setups and one-liners, so setup and punchlines,
Well, people got to have their stuff together. I mean, when you go to a show, like I'm in the room 1 hour before showtime.
Yeah.
The booker know I'm there. Again, it's a job, right? It's a business.
Yep, exactly.
These guys that just show up 3 minutes before showtime.
No.
It's
I remember
Frank right before they're going on. It's unacceptable.
One of my biggest mentors was Frank O'Donnell, and he was one of the guys that started comedy here in Rhode Island, him and Charlie Hall. And Frank always said it, this is a job. You always want to be at a show a half hour before the show starts. Whether you're the feature, the headliner, the host, doesn't matter. And now after booking shows, now I understand why he said that, because there have been shows where I'm waiting for the headliner to get there and it's 5 minutes past 9 and the show starts at 9 and I'm like, all right,
stressful.
Yes, I've got a little bit of a buffer because they're the headliner, but I don't like this feeling of not having all of my comics here at the start of the show.
There's nothing more nerve-wracking than that.
Yeah.
Nothing more nerve-wracking.
No,
So, yeah, you're right. You got to treat it like a business. But see, I think starting later in life like you did, it taught you that. You didn't need anyone to tell you that because as a contractor, I got to be on the job site at this time if I'm going to get this much work done today.
Yeah, you already have a professional work ethic from your day job.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, the only person who ever beats me to a show is Frank Santarelli.
Yeah.
No matter what time I get there, he's in the parking lot already. I'm like, what time did you get here? 1 o'clock?
Yeah, exactly. I slept in the parking lot last night. What's wrong with you?
But he's the same way. It's like, I don't want to be stressed out in traffic. I get a flat tire. I want time to fix it.
Yep.
You don't want to be coming in with grease all over you. Things
honestly, we had him on the podcast, probably season 1 or 2.
Yeah.
And we get there. We said we were. Let's say we were recording at like 6.
We were there an hour before.
We were there at 5, and he was already in the parking lot.
He's already there waiting.
What's wrong with you guys? You couldn't even bring a pizza.
I don't even get a meal
Don't
break.
even get a meal for this. I love Frank.
At least he's there. I'd rather have a headliner there too early than not there.
Oh, absolutely. That's the thing, and anything that's going to cut the stress down, because ultimately what's that going to do? That's going to show whoever is booking. Now, it's one thing if it's a booker who's not at the show, but when you're working with a booker that's going to be at the show, you just showed them like, okay, not only is he funny, but he's here on time. I don't have to worry about whether or not they're going to be professional. That's the other side of comedy that a lot of the younger guys don't get.
Absolutely.
I remember, and I won't mention names. I don't want to throw anyone under the bus, but I remember headlining at the Connection in East Providence, and the person who was he was supposed to host showed up late and wanted to go up when he got there. And the feature had to go up and host the show, or I think maybe someone was hanging around because back then, you always had comics hanging around. So Dana would be like, hey, do you want to host tonight? So-and-so didn't show up yet. They'd hosted, then the middle goes up, and this person still wanted to go up and do their material. And I remember them getting pissed off and sulking in the back of the room. And Dana was like, no, you didn't fucking show up on time. That's not professional. I'm not taking time away from Ace, who's headlining, because you want to do fucking time. Yeah. Your time was replaced by the person that happened to be hanging here who got to host.
That's how I got to host for Bob Nelson back in the day.
Yeah.
I was there to see him, and the host didn't show up. And she saw me sitting there, and she goes, "You want to host for him?" And I'm like, "Yes,
Right.
absolutely." So I got to work with him, and then the host shows up. We're already 15 minutes in,
Right.
and they're like, "Too bad."
Yeah.
See you later. And I agree. And whenever I book a fundraiser or something, and I put people on the show, I always tell them half hour before, and most people are good about that.
Yeah.
Most people are good. I've only had one comic one time who showed up about 20 minutes after the show started.
Oh, wow.
Like,
were they the
really
headliner?
late. They were supposed to be the feature.
Ooh, so that's cutting it
It's
close.
supposed to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't put them on.
I wouldn't.
Yeah.
I didn't put them on at all. So I had someone else headlining. I was hosting, and I just did a much longer spot, and we did
And just did a two-person
show and just blew them off. And
That's all.
you know, it's just
Think twice next time, right?
Exactly. It's like we've said it before. This is a business. This is a professional job. Once you move from being an open micer to getting paid, that payment, there's an expectation that you're going to be professional.
Yep.
And I'm not, if you get stuck in, Sal, if I hire you for a show, and you're an exception because you show up extra early, but I'm just saying as an example, you're driving to the gig and you get stuck in horrific traffic, and you call or text me 2 hours before the show and say, "Listen, I'm not going to get there till 15 minutes before the show because I'm stuck in this traffic." Fine. Great.
That's understandable.
You contacted me. But this person I'm talking about that showed up 20 minutes after didn't even call.
Yeah. No.
Didn't text anything.
And nowadays with cell phones and stuff,
no excuse.
Yeah, no that's
excuse
no
for that.
excuse.
If you don't have enough courtesy to do that, then I don't have time to bother with you. But,
No.
Now let me ask you this: as you were, you start working at Giggles, you're working with some other guys that we look up to. When you talk about Lenny, Johnny Peasy's been an
Awesome
amazing. Person to me over the years, so I can't say enough about Johnny. But what are some of your wow moments as you were coming up in comedy? What are some of the guys? I mean, if there are others besides them, or places, or things that you got to do that you're like, holy shit, I can't believe that doing comedy got me here or got me to work with this person.
Again, just going back to Giggles. I mean, I've hung out with Stephen Wright there. I mean, he was one of my favorites growing up.
Holy shit, he's such a recluse that's got to be a cool moment.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I had him. He was in the audience. He was there to see Don Gavin because they're friends. And but he was in the audience when I was on stage, and I'm up there thinking, "Jesus, I got Stephen Wright in the room watching me perform." It's just weird. And but I've done a couple of shows there with Bill Burr. I've actually brought Bill on stage a couple of times, working with him, hanging out with him in the green room, shooting the shit with him. So that was pretty cool. But all the guys on there, Tony V, Sweeney, Lenny, Adam Ferrer, I've hung out and worked there with him as well. It's just been a fun it's just been a fun road. I mean, doing it for 15 years. I mean, let's face it, Mike's going to give you the good shows. I mean, everyone goes down there and the biggest of the names. All the guys from comics come home if they want to work out before the show. They stop and
they go there. Right.
I mean, you're naming the best of the best. I mean, that's the faces of the Mount Rushmore of comedy. You're naming that. Tony V is one of my all-time favorites because not only is he hilariously funny, he's so down to earth, easy to talk to.
Such a nice guy. He was one of our favorite. We did an episode. We went up to Giggles. Because we didn't want him to drive all the way down, so we went up to Giggles. We reached out to Mike, said, "Hey, can we record a podcast at Giggles on like a Wednesday night?"
They were doing a fundraiser,
and they were doing a fundraiser on the other end. That's when Santarelli crashed it. He goes, "Sure, don't talk to me or anything. I'm only in there making the crowd laugh while you guys are back here talking."
Yeah,
But Tony was so fun and so down to earth, and he had some amazing stories. I haven't done it yet, but I want to reach out to Bobcat, and the way I want to hook him in to be on the show is to mention the story that Tony told us.
One of my all-time favorite stories on this show
Absolutely.
that we've ever had.
It had to do with when Tony was the American tourist, gorilla. And they were traveling the country. I don't know if they were
coming out of Canada.
Yeah, they were coming out of Canada, and Tony. Let's just say Tony had to use a lot of talcum powder.
Like he said, he goes, I'm a chubby Italian. I sweat a lot in the suit, and I used to wear tights, and I had to put a lot of powder in the tights. And, my crotch sweat and the powder would create a lot of rocks.
A lot of little rocks.
A lot of little rocks.
Yeah.
And the guy from
Customs at the
guy
border.
from Customs in Canada decided to pull us out of line and check our luggage. And when he opened my luggage, he saw these little crotch sweat powder rocks and thought he hit the mother load. He goes, and this is where Bob and I are assholes, because he licks his finger and goes to touch one of the rocks, and we can stop him at this point and tell him what it is, but we don't say shit until he touches it and reaches and puts it on his tongue, and you see this horrified look on his face, and we're laughing.
Cat is laughing, yelling,
and
his
crying,
balls, his balls.
And Bob's just going, his balls, his balls.
I never heard that one. That's good.
Oh my God, it was so funny.
One of the funniest stories I've ever heard.
That's nasty too. Imagine doing that. It's almost like the Dumb and Dumber when he drinks the beer. When he pulls them off.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. I know.
And when you hear Bobcat tell the story, Bob goes, as he's bringing the powder up to his tongue, I'm like, have at it. Enjoy.
So Tony was telling me a story one night. Doing a gig, he's like right at the exit. There's a car accident. Drives like 4 hours to get there. Can see the building where he has to go,
but he can't get there.
He wants to get out, and the cop's like, you stay in your car. So he actually missed the gig. He was right at the exit, could see the building.
Wow, the
cop
entire
let him
time.
leave his car. So he had to sit in his car. I think it was like 3 hours he sat in his car, turned around and went home.
Wow.
Jeez.
So
Chris Zito told a story one time. He was stuck in traffic like that on the highway, dead stop, and he called the connection.
I was hosting that night. It was Chris Zito and Tony V coming from Boston. Massive accident.
Didn't he do stuff over the phone?
Yeah. So they literally were stuck on the highway. They had a helicopter have to med flight the patients up to Boston, and this was before it was when cell phones first came out. We were like, Paul Barkley. Was like, all right, Ace, go up, host, do as much time. Now, Dana's telling me, stretch. I'm literally probably 5-6 years in, so I might have 20, 25 minutes stretching. I get to my 25 minutes, and I'm like, all right, I got nothing. So Dana, Paul Barkley says, hey, why don't you get up there and say, hey, by the technology that we have now, our comics are actually on the highway. They're going to call in. And so Dana literally picked up the phone and put the phone against the microphone in the ticket booth, which is where they used to do the announcements from off stage, puts it up to the thing. And within like 3 seconds, you couldn't understand a fucking word either of them was saying. It was all muffled. It was like... All of a sudden, they're like, all right, abandon that idea. They're still fucking 25 miles away. I did every possible. I literally, by the end, I was like, you guys like cartoons? You like Scooby-Doo? I'm literally, they finally got there.
You turned into Chris Farley.
I did.
You guys ever see Die Hard?
You guys like Scooby-Doo? Like, zoink, Scoob, we gotta get out of here.
All right, we're gonna take a bathroom break.
Yeah, well, we did, and then I did. I literally took impressions requests, cartoons. Who's your favorite cartoon? Bugs Bunny? What's up, Doc? I was doing anything I possibly could.
You were pulling it out of your ass that night.
Zito comes in. No, actually, I think Tony got in before Zito. Tony went up, did some time, and then Zito went up and did some time. It was probably a 2-hour fucking show, of which I probably did an hour, just from my material and requests. It was one of the worst nights of my life. Yeah, that was crazy.
God.
That was nuts.
So, I mean, you've had a damn good run in this comedy thing. Too bad it came to an end so suddenly. When
he's
COVID
back.
started. He's back. He's back.
Asshole.
Oh, okay. No, no. I'm glad you're back. It was fun working with you last week. But we got to ask you our favorite question that we ask everybody on the podcast. and we have a highlight reel at the end of the year that we do, a highlight episode of this question. It's called The Funny Bad Gig. Now, not so funny the night it happened to you.
No.
But after a little bit of time, a little bit of distance, you realize that it was funny. It's that gig that when it's happening, you're thinking to yourself, you know what? Maybe I should go back to contracting because maybe comedy's just not for me.
You know, maybe I got to call that lady back and start answering her code questions.
But you're in the green room and some other guy telling a story about a really bad gig he had, and you're like, really? You think that's bad? Listen to this. It's your one-up story. You know, when we're exchanging our bad gig stories.
And we're laughing at each other because nothing makes comic friends laugh more than hearing stories of how their friends die on stage.
Or watching each other struggle on stage.
Or watching each other, yeah.
Well, my worst time on stage, I think, when I first started, was for Dave Radigan. It was a New Year's Eve show in Salem, Mass.
Yep.
It was me, Amy T, and Steve Bjork. And Dave's like, go easy on the edgy stuff. There's going to be a 13-year-old in the crowd. And the 13-year-old was in the crowd, and all I did was look at that 13-year-old.
Of course.
And
do the most.
Of course.
Oh, yeah.
And I just remember I just went blank. I couldn't even remember anything.
Yep.
And I actually went over and had my notes on a barrel on the stage, and I had to look at them. And I just remember, like, the whole crowd, like I heard like a handful of people go, "Oh no!" No,
He's going to notes.
It was the worst feeling in the world because I focused so much on this kid, and I was doing fine. But then I was a couple of bits I was trying to work around, so I wasn't being dirty with the kid in the room.
Right.
Threw my whole act and my timing off, and I forgot everything. So I'm just standing there in front of a room full of people, and I couldn't remember my act. And you hear someone go, "Oh no!" Like it was the way the ladies said it. And we had to do a second show, so I had to bring Amy T up. She went up. I went behind the stage and just took a nap. I was like, at this point,
did you really?
But it was just the way the ladies said it, and not having anything to say afterwards.
Right.
It was probably like my worst time ever on stage. It was just the environment. It was a little theater. Nobody was even drinking. There was no bar. It was just a weird vibe. And
isn't it amazing? And if you hadn't even paid attention to the 13-year-old,
I would have been
you and Radigan were and the 13-year-old's family were probably the only ones that knew there was a 13-year-old in the room. If you had just played it to the rest of the room, everything probably would have been fine.
Yeah.
You know?
It was until I had a couple of edgy bits that I was trying to leave out.
Right.
You kind of feed off one bit, feeds to the other, and I just lost my place. So now I just go up and do my act. If somebody gets offended, although a year ago I did a show, and the girl we were doing a show for got up. Paul Gilligan's hosting. I get off. He goes back up, and then when he brings someone else up, he comes back out in the hall. He comes up to me. He goes, "That girl that just left the room crying because of you? That was her show." And I'm like, "What did I say?" He's like, "You got to learn how to talk. You've been doing this a while, and you got to not leave stuff out." And I'm like, you offend everybody today. No matter what you do, you offend somebody. And I didn't think I was that bad. And I just can't worry about what people in the crowd are going to think. No. I mean, I don't get up there. I never use the N word or the C word. Anyone using that is so. I don't look for that shock and awe. Right. But I do my act. If someone doesn't want to hire me because of my act, or if I have a couple of bits you don't want me to do, just tell me. I won't.
Tell me up front, and I won't do them. Right.
Yeah. Mike has a couple bits. When I was at Giggles, he's like, "Don't do that bit," and I'm like, "Okay," and I never do it.
Right.
But today, just no matter what you say, you offend somebody.
It's hard.
No, and that's the thing is because they take it so personally, and it's like, when I wrote this, I wasn't thinking about you. It's not a personal. It's not a personal attack on you. And I told Sally when we worked together about the story about the woman that came up to you after a show and said, "I'm Catholic," and
I offended God,
and you offended God.
I'm like, no, I offended you, and I apologize for that. But who are you to say you don't know God? God made me. God gave me this talent and this sense of humor. And by the way, we just raised $12,500 for the American Lung Association with me offending God. I don't think I'm going to get to the gates of heaven and St. Peter's going to go, "Hey man, you were in until you did that wedding at Cana joke," you know?
Yeah, no.
It's subjective. You can't speak for the rest of the audience because we've got a friend, we've got a buddy who's down here. I don't know if you've ever worked with Brad Pierce. Hilarious kid who does a lot of crowd work. He's like no one else I've ever seen do crowd work. Like he's very, very quick and sharp, and no two shows are the same. And we did a show where we were told, listen, this is for a group who have lost loved ones to addiction. So don't do anything about drugs, alcohol. So now here I am. My wedding at Cana joke is all about the drunk guy at every wedding. And I'm like, all right, so I cut that out. Brad goes up. Now he does some stuff that's a little edgy, but it has nothing to do with drugs, alcohol, or addiction. He looks at one lady and the guy has like the typical fireman mustache, and he starts talking about mustache rides with the wife. The lady running the show was screaming at me off stage, going, "Get him off the stage. He's offending the." I go, "Well, wait. The crowd is laughing, and he's not doing anything about addiction. That's all you were told. We asked you at the beginning of the show, is this an adult show or a PG show? Adult show, no problem. Okay, well, he's doing an adult show."
Yeah.
And yet she wanted him off the stage. So it's so subjective that you just never know. And like you said, I'm not going to listen, if someone tells me don't do these 3 bits, fine, I won't do those 3 bits.
Exactly.
But if you don't tell me, I'm going to go up and do my act because that's what I was hired to do. It is what it is, you know?
No, Scott and I were talking about this last weekend, just where we're going with comedy. You know, I wish I did stand up in the 80s. That seemed to be the time to do it. Now,
Yeah.
it's just there's too many rules. You know,
Yeah.
I've been at giggles and people have kids in the audience. You know, fundraisers, but you know, when you got a 4-year-old on his iPad on the front table, it's just not comedy.
That's not comedy.
You know,
and I tell people, because we do a lot of fundraisers, and when I work with a client and I tell them, you know, I had a client a couple of years ago. She was like, "Well, we want to make this a family event." I said, "Then don't do comedy."
Right.
Stand up is not for kids, and it has nothing to do with the material. You can be absolutely squeaky clean. Kids do not have the attention span for a 90-minute show.
No.
And that's exactly what happened. They had kids there. They went against what I said. I said, "Okay, we'll do it. Understand, it's going to be distracting." Halfway through the show, the kids get up. They start playing cornhole in the back. They're talking. They're disrupting the show. Now the parents are running to go get the kids. It's like, comedy is not a family event. Have fucking potato sack races and shit like that if
that's
you want
what
to have a
King's
family
Bowling's
event.
for, or Chuck E. Cheese.
Exactly. But
That's the new norm today. That's just where we are. So
you're right. You're right. The only thing you can do is just tell them, look, based on my 34 years of experience, or Scott's 20 years of experience, or your X amount of years of experience, here's what I've seen work and here's what I've seen have not worked.
But like
It's
you
up
said,
to
you
you.
tell somebody it's an adult show, or I've been at shows where people are like, we don't, these comics sound brutal, but it's adult material. Oh, don't worry about it. And then 20 minutes into the show, the lady will come up and complain.
Right.
With being too dirty.
Oh, yeah.
You know, after you know what was going to happen.
Or they're like, "Oh, don't worry about the kids. They're fine. It'll go over their heads." Yeah, it's going to go over their heads, and then they're going to get bored, and they're not going to pay attention, and then it's going to be distracting.
I've told some people no lately.
Yeah.
For shows.
I'd rather not do it.
Because they'll say, "Well, we're going to have kids there. We're going to do," and then I'm not gonna. Then I'm not going to do it.
No.
It's just
I'm not the right person for this.
Hire a clown
No.
to do balloon animals for the kids.
Get a magician or something, because
I'm actually considering doing the balloon animals. I think it probably pays better than stand up.
Yeah, you're right.
let me tell you, I've seen some magicians do pretty well. So
Yeah, no shit.
all right,
Now it's a different world. I mean, like you said, you love doing it. That's the thing. It lose your
Right.
back. So
we as things change, as far as the social climate, things like that, all we can do is kind of find our place, find our audience, and keep doing what we love to do. That's all we can do. So Sal, what can we promote for you, like a social media website, anything like that?
Facebook. That's all. You know, I'm like brutal when it comes to marketing. It's probably my biggest.
All of us. All of us older guys are, my friend. We
It's a
all are
challenge.
terrible when it comes to the marketing
Yeah,
stuff.
you see something again. These younger kids, they're marketing geniuses. Every 2 minutes, they got a post. I mean,
they've got
6,000 followers. You know.
They've got 5 minutes of material, but they've got 4,000 Instagram followers, and
Why do you think we
million
have a
likes.
college intern helping us with our marketing right now?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, just so we can pull reels and put it up on TikTok and reels and stuff like that.
For that reason alone, my friend. So,
Yeah.
all right. What is your Facebook?
Sal
Is it just
Votano?
Sal
Yeah,
Votano?
no
Okay.
stage name. I keep it simple.
All right, and I'll put a link to his Facebook in the show notes. So if you're listening, you want to follow Sal. Sal's a very funny comic. I just worked with him. Great comic. Definitely someone you want to check out. Great guest tonight, man. Thank you so much for coming on. Really appreciate it.
And we will definitely have you back on a Friday night and have you come down and have you and your son sit in and we'll do a podcast.
Sounds good, guys. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate
Do
it.
some drinking.
Appreciate it, Sal.
All right.
Thanks, man. Have a good night.
Yeah.
And that was Sal Votano. That was awesome. I loved having him on. He's
a good
so
guy.
laid back, awesome guy. And that's how he was. Like, I only met him, I think I met him through like Radigan and Paul D'Angelo at that Christmas party, and it just really
and that's
nice
his
guy.
demeanor on stage too. That just
Yeah.
kind of easygoing, and his comedy kind of sneaks up on you.
Yeah.
because he's this easygoing guy on stage, and he's got
But he's
very
edgy.
witty, edgy
Yeah.
comedy. So I really enjoyed working with him.
Well,
And-
if you're in the Boston area, you got to check out Sal Votano. Absolutely.
Definitely, and like he said, he's at Johnny Peasy's new
LOL.
club, the Johnny Peasy LOL Comedy in North Andover. Great club. Johnny has the Boston legends at his club all
Yeah.
the time, so they got a great lineup again this week. So check them out. And you got anything going
No,
on?
I got nothing coming up. I got a pretty quiet. I had a bunch of shows that got not canceled but rescheduled in February, so I got nothing going on until March.
I got a pretty March is going to be pretty good. We got our first Bradley show of the year. We're starting our 10th season.
That's awesome.
Of the Comedy All Stars at Bradley's this
That's
year,
fantastic.
so we're excited about that. Got some great lineups coming up this year, so it's going to be an exciting year there.
Well, I will tell you this. Speaking of the book, Maddie
Yes.
Loses a Tooth, it is available on Amazon and on BarnesandNoble.com. But I'm having a second signing event. I had one signing event that went very well. Also having a signing event I've been invited to be part of in honor of Dr. Seuss's birthday, which I guess is March 2nd.
Very cool.
On March 4th at the Park Theater and Event Center from our buddy Ed Brady.
Yes.
They're going to have 15 local authors come in, and we're all going to read our books, and then we'll have available for purchase and signing there as well. So that's going to be from, I believe, 12 to 2 or I don't know. You'll have to look it up. Go to the
way to sell it.
yeah, I know. No, if you go to the parktheaterri.com, you will see all the information. It's the Dr. Seuss birthday celebration. There's going to be crafts for the kids to do. And then, like I said, all of us authors are going to read our books, and we'll have them available for sale and for signing. So check that out. And then stay tuned. I'm going to have some other signings and some other events going on. I am working to get another Royal Flush show on the books sometime
awesome.
in April. So future shows, I should have a date and location nailed down for that as well. So
And if you haven't been to one of those shows, you definitely want to check that out. He puts on an amazing lineup of comedy, just packed with talent. So
Yeah.
you definitely want to check that out. And what else we got going on?
that's it.
Cool.
Other than that,
We'll talk to you
next week.